Today I'm talking to the person who has pursued long-term goals, however eventually quit. After a few days, after a few weeks, after a few months, however you did quit, and you did this a couple of times. You pursued a certain goal and still have not achieved it to this day. If this is you, I promise you, if you watch this video and you internalize it, conceptualize it, rewatch it, take notes, reach out to me, ask questions, you are going to be able to get on the path of pursuing your long-term goals and actually achieve it this time. I use these tips to this day, and I've been able to achieve things that I haven't otherwise been able to achieve in the past. So with that being said, let's get into it. Now I have to start with explaining dopamine. Dopamine is a molecule in our brain that is released during certain times. You probably heard this word before, as it has kind of been a buzzword lately. Dopamine detox, all that stuff. People are associating dopamine with pleasure, meaning if you eat something you truly like chocolate, you get a dopamine release. Yes, this is true. However, it's complicated. Let me explain. Let's put it in this example. So you woke up and you're debating whether or not you're going to get out of bed and brush your teeth or whatever. At this point in time, you're not particularly motivated. So the dopamine in your brain is being released about 1 to 2 times per second. So now let's say you start to want your favorite thing, and let's say this favorite thing is coffee. So a couple minutes pass by and you start to actually want some coffee. You're craving it. Now what's happening at this point in time is that dopamine is being released to 30 to 50 times per second. This is enough to urge you to get out of bed, motivate you to get into the kitchen and make a cup of coffee. With that said, it's not truly a pleasure molecule. Dopamine is really an anticipation molecule. It's wanting, it's anticipating something, because that was when the dopamine is released and it urged you to get that cup of coffee. Now, yes, when you drink that cup of coffee, more dopamine is released because of the pleasure from it. I'm going to switch coffee and move it into chocolate so you can fully understand this. So let's say you have a bar of chocolate, you anticipated it, and you're eating it. When you take a bite of that chocolate, your dopamine is being released. However, at the same time, it's creating a mirror image of itself in the form of pain. Not physical pain, not mental pain. This pain is in the form of craving. So now you know why when you take a bite of a chocolate bar, it almost feels impossible to not take another bite. That's because you're craving another bite. I know it's crazy, right? Now 9 times out of 10, if you have more chocolate in your house, you're going to be eating it throughout the day because of that craving. If you truly like chocolate and you eat it every day, here's the messed up part. Every day that you eat it, the pleasure you get from it, from dopamine, is slowly starting to diminish. And the pain, the craving, slowly starts to rise. Now, I'm going to switch this example to drugs, and then you can fully internalize this. You probably heard of somebody who tried to chase their first high. Because when you first take a drug, it's phenomenal. You get this rise of dopamine, you're having a great time, etc., etc. But the second time you do it, it's not as good as the first time. The third time you do it, it's definitely not as good as the first time, and then etc. And then this is why people chase that first high. But what's happening internally is that each time they take the drug, the pleasure from it is slowly diminishing, while the pain side, the craving of it, is slowly rising. And this is how people get addicted. Now, when months go by and they're taking the same drug, they're not taking it for pleasure anymore, because that pleasure has greatly diminished to almost a numbing effect. They're taking this drug so they can momentarily subdue that craving. And it goes on and on until they hopefully break that habit. I know it truly is a messed up system, but we can leverage this system to our benefit and use it towards achieving our goals. Now that you understand dopamine and what it's truly doing, here's how to use it. So let's start with the initial phase of planning out your goal. This is the biggest mistake a lot of people make, including myself, that causes you to quit days or even weeks later. You get too excited about it. You start to tell people and they start to encourage you, which releases dopamine. You start to plan it out, and you start to visualize it. You start to visualize the end result and how it feels to have that goal and see yourself with it and achieving it. And this is getting you way too excited, which is jacking up your dopamine all the way up, causing it to crash. During this crash is when the pain side of dopamine, the craving part, is dramatically increased. And this is the phase where you start to get impatient because you want it now. You want it the next day, not remembering this is a long-term goal. And then eventually you quit. You don't quit because it's hard. You quit to get rid of the craving, because unlike drugs, this long-term goal isn't easily accessible. You can't buy it. You gotta work for it. With every long-term goal that we have, we're gonna have certain milestones we come across. How we treat each milestone is very important. Let me explain. I'm gonna take weight loss as an example. Let's say you wanna lose 50 pounds in a year. And let's say you're losing a pound every Sunday. Now, you can choose to celebrate this win, and you can choose not to celebrate this win. But what's very important is that you randomize it. You want to celebrate your wins, but not all the time. What we're doing here is giving us an intermittent reward system. It's kind of gambling. Why do you think people get so addicted to gambling that they throw their whole lives away for it? Because gambling takes advantage of our internal dopamine system. Dopamine loves nothing more than a surprise, and that's what gambling gives us. It's anticipation and hope. Hope that we will win. And this is why the house always wins. They let you win once in a while, but most times they win. And that's what keeps us coming back. I'm gonna switch this example real quick to the dating life, because I know we all been there, and now you're gonna be able to understand why this works. So let's say a girl meets a guy meets a girl, they like each other. One or two situations can happen. The guy texts the girl every day, all day, calls her every day, and he's always there. What happens? She starts to get bored because she knows that he's gonna be there every day and she expects it. It sucks, I know. Let's say you're the next guy who does this instead. Text her the first day, cool. Text her the second day, cool. Third day, doesn't text her at all, no attention. Now she's like, okay, I thought we had something, but alright, whatever. Let's say he doesn't text her the fourth day. Now she's like, what's going on, right? Now let's say the fifth day, he texts her. Now she's like, okay, cool, so he does like me, he probably was just busy, whatever. And then he texts her again. And then the day after, he doesn't text. Now, she's very frustrated. But what she doesn't know is that when he did text her unexpectedly, her dopamine levels went up. Each day he doesn't text her, the more she anticipates it and the more she hopes that he does. And then when he does text her, she truly gets happy and cherishes that moment and makes sure she puts time aside to get, to talk to him. You get the point. That is your dopamine system and how it works. Let's bring it back to your goals. So each Sunday you lose a pound, you can choose whether or not you're gonna celebrate that win. You don't wanna overdo it where you spike your dopamine levels too high and get that crash. You wanna avoid that. The good thing is dopamine is very subjective. You can verbally celebrate, tell yourself, good job, I did a great job, I worked out, I did this and that, I ate the right meals. You can have a small cheat meal that would allow you to stay baseline. You can have other people praise you if you choose to. The key here is to truly randomize this process, and how you can do that is flip a coin. Heads, you celebrate that small win. Tails, you don't. And if you do this throughout the year, I can almost guarantee you that you will stick with this long-term goal. Doesn't matter what goal it is. If you randomize celebrating small wins and leave it up to fate, you will keep your dopamine levels afloat and keep that pain side subdued, which will eventually allow you to achieve your long-term goal. Maybe your goal is to be more productive throughout the year, but you might be making these mistakes that is actually decreasing your productivity. If you want to know what those mistakes are, click this video on screen. Thank you so much. I look forward to the next video. My name is Marcus.